Updating tonight's top stories, China fires ballistic missiles into waters around Taiwan. Beijing authorities seething over the visit to the island by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Japan claims 5 missiles fired by China during its largest ever military drills landed in its exclusive economic zone. South Korea and Thailand cancel flights to Taiwan because of these military exercises. China has told carriers to avoid airspace in so-called danger zones in the days ahead.
For more on China's military drills in the Taiwan Strait, Meia Nouwens, Senior Fellow for Chinese Defence Policy and Military Modernisation at IISS London, joins us live now for more. Ms. Nouwens, thank you for joining us. These are China's largest ever military drills that we've seen in the Taiwan Strait. Analysis might suggest it's reactive, a dry run perhaps for a potential invasion or attack, and one that pushes the Taiwan Straits even closer to a full-blown conflict. Are you convinced, though, that there is a serious risk here, or are there more rational heads within China that prevail at this juncture?
Look, I think this doesn't help for concerns about miscalculation or misunderstanding or accidents. So there is a risk with regards to that. As you mentioned, these are large-scale exercises that will be conducted over the next 4 days. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that I've seen that signals that China, the United States, or Taiwan actually want to go to war at this moment. So this, from my perspective, is about signaling discontent towards the United States, towards Pelosi, and towards Taiwan. And of course, to signal strength to a domestic audience in China as well.
A part of the signal of that discontent are Chinese aircraft that have once again crossed the so-called median line separating the Taiwan Strait. That action alone is considered highly provocative, but China would argue that Taiwan is an inalienable part of Chinese territory, that there is no so-called median line at all. How far do these drills then play to domestic and foreign audiences? As you were saying, there is a domestic component here as far as China's resolve on Taiwan.
Yes, you're right. This is a contentious and a sensitive move that China has made to cross the median line of the Taiwan Strait. It's interesting that it's chosen to do so at such a contentious moment to signal its heightened discontent, because it has said in the past that median line does not exist and that the Taiwan Strait are not international waters, but Chinese waters. But, of course, using it to signal your highest level of discontent to date by doing so, of course, acknowledges that it is a sensitive line and that it then does exist. So it's a little bit I think of an interesting take to do that. Again, it won't have been misunderstood or gone unnoticed in Taiwan, obviously, and by the United States, which is within the region watching closely as well.
As optics are important for any country, for China they are as well, and politics drives China's actions to a great degree. The scale of these drills, we've seen multiple ballistic missiles fired around Taiwan as well. They come at a pivotal time for President Xi Jinping. In a few months, he is poised to claim a third term. He can't afford to be seen as weak. So what is at stake politically for Xi Jinping, insofar as the actions he takes militarily now in these drills?
Well, as you say rightly, there's a lot going on at the home front in China at the moment for President Xi, not just politically with the 20th Party Congress coming up, for which President Xi likely would have wanted stability this year at all fronts, both at home and abroad, but which isn't necessarily happening. Also economically, of course, as a result of the dynamic zero COVID policy, and of course, questions around banking, concerns within the banking sector in China too. So this isn't going very well if stability was wished for. And so, at the height of these deteriorating tensions between the U.S. and China, a strong signal that China won't be crossed is, I think, from Xi's perspective and from Beijing's perspective, needed in response to Pelosi's visit. And of course, at this point in time, Xi has at his disposal a different PLA than we saw in 1995 and 1996.
So China may not need support for its actions or permission for what it does by way of these drills. But there has been scant support globally or regionally for what China's reaction has been to the US House Speaker's visit to this region. Japan also lodging a protest as well. We just saw news of that. The G7 saying there's no justification for it. ASEAN as well weighing in. Foreign ministers saying that they're concerned about these rising tensions around Taiwan, that it could lead to miscalculation. Now, the trigger for these military actions by China notwithstanding, do you see them as a risk for the Indo-Pacific region as a whole? And through what lens will regional defense authorities now view what China insists are justified actions?
Look, I think, again, it goes to the question of what does this mean for accidents happening when you have larger scale exercises, a more capable and assertive PLA that's willing to, that the Beijing authorities are willing to use to assert Chinese positions and interests in the region. Are we seeing a more confident and a more active, but also coordinated PLA than we did in 1995? These are all things that I think countries in the region will be watching for. The other question, of course, is how does crisis communication still work between major powers and China? Are those sufficient, or do there need to be more of them in the future? And lastly, of course, is the question of what does this mean for more regular behavior moving forward from China? Will we see this type of action more frequently in the future? And if you're Japan, I think that's something that you would be watching very closely as well.
Ms. Nouwens, thank you very much for your perspective on this. Meia Nouwens, they're Senior Fellow for Chinese Defence Policy and Military Modernisation at IISS London.